Donald Trump's arrest. Some people are warning it might be closer than it seems. Remember, Donald Trump has several different prosecutions we've been keeping our eyes on. One of them is in full swing. That's the New York prosecution involving Alvin Bragg. Trump's been charged with a bunch of different fictitious falsification of business record violations. They're felonies in New York. They are not good. They can result in theoretically jail, but they're not all that consequential relative to some of the other pending prosecutions that are coming Trump's way. And one individual who is concerned is a former lawyer to Donald Trump. His name is Cobb. We've referenced him here, and Trump has many different lawyers that exist across a whole wide variety of cases. And Cobb is just one of them.
It's interesting also, Ty, that you're saying obstruction, but that you also think they could choose to go further to include espionage to make the point. So what do you think the actual charges will be? And in them, would Trump be looking at jail time?
So I wouldn't, if it was me, I would not necessarily expand the case to try to prove the Espionage Act piece of it, because there's so much evidence of guilty knowledge on the espionage piece that all they really have to do is show that Trump moved these documents at various times when DOJ was either demanding them or actually present, that he filed falsely with the Justice Department, had his lawyers file falsely with the Justice Department an affidavit to the effect that that none existed, which was shattered by the documents that they then discovered after the search, and the many other misrepresentations that he and others have made on his behalf with regard to his possession of classified documents. I think this obstruction case is a tight case, and yes, I do think he'll go to jail on it.
Wow. Does think that Trump will go to jail. It is a tight case, and there is a lot of risk there because it's not a complicated case. This is just something where they connect the dots and they say Trump had the intent to move these documents around. They demanded the documents come back. Trump didn't comply. That translates to active volitional obstruction that justifies criminal prosecution of the president, is their argument. And this will come back because they're going to say Trump is doing this in his position of power. And in other words, if you give him an additional position of power, he's going to do it all again. And so they have to stop him from being the menace they claim he is. CNN has some more details on this about how the prosecution is elevating. They tell us that new evidence in the special counsel probe, the one being brought by Jack Smith for those two federal areas, may undercut Trump's claim that the documents he took were automatically declassified. So here CNN reports, the National Archives has informed former President Trump that it is set to hand over to special counsel Jack Smith 16 records that show Trump and his top advisors had knowledge of the correct declassification process while he was the president. So remember Deborah Stidel Wall. We've talked about her many times here. She was the woman. We're not going to play this clip again. We've done it many times here. But when Donald Trump was a president, he was standing there, and this is Deborah right here. Oh, Deborah, yeah. Oh, well, that's a lot of archives, huh? That's a lot of, paper, a lot of books or something. And she said, yeah, whatever, shut up and get the heck out of here. Get out of my library. So she's kind of the head librarian. And for a long time, we've wondered why she's so powerful. She's the one who gets to tell the president what the declassification process is, which is amazing. I thought the president was the most powerful person in the executive branch who got to say how things worked. But apparently Deborah Stidel Wall, she's the person who gets to say how you do it. And if you don't go through her little classification process, well, then it's illegal. And you are now subject to FBI raids. In a May 16th letter obtained by CNN, acting archivist, here she is, Deborah Stidel Wall. She sent a letter to Trump. She said, the 16 records in question all reflect communications involving close presidential advisors. All right. Some of them directed to you personally. Okay. Sounds like that might be a personal record concerning whether, why, and how you should declassify certain classified records. All right. She says the 16 presidential records at issue here, which were subpoenaed earlier this year, may provide critical evidence establishing the former president's awareness of the process. This is a key part of the criminal investigation into Trump's mishandling of the classified documents. The records may also provide insight into Trump's intent. Did he willfully disregard what he knew were clearly established protocols, which again, I think is all hogwash. Willfully, what he knew were clearly established protocols. You didn't use my library slip. Trump and his allies have insisted that as president, Trump did not have to follow a specific process. Totally agree. At a CNN town hall last week, Trump repeated the claim simply by removing the documents he had declassified them. By the way, they became automatically declassified when I took them. He is the root source of the power of the executive branch, as much as Deborah doesn't want to admit it. Otherwise, she's more powerful than the president. According to the letter, Trump tried to block the special counsel from accessing the 16 records by asserting a claim of constitutionally based privilege. But in her letter, Deborah Steidel-Wall, the angriest librarian in the country, rejects that claim, stating that the special counsel's office has represented that it is prepared to demonstrate with specificity to a court why it's likely the 16 records contain evidence that would be important to their investigation. Special counsel also told Deborah that the evidence is not practically available from another source. The letter goes on to state that the records will be handed over in a few days unless prohibited by a court order, and Trump's legal team told CNN that the former president has received several letters from the archives over the course of the investigation. Trump's team may challenge this in court, this person said, but claimed in the past the archives has handed over documents before the Trump team has had a chance to even challenge the release. Trump's legal team would not reveal what was in those 16 records, but the source said the former president's attempt to block the special counsel from accessing it is more strategic than consequential. Nobody commented. Jim Trusty, an attorney for Trump, told CNN that he relied on his constitutional authority to take the documents. Said at the end of my presidency, his presidency, he relied on his constitutional authority as the commander-in-chief. He can take documents. He was still president, and he effectively declassified them and personalized them. He talked about declassifying them, but he didn't need to. He did it by removing them. And the FBI still went hog wild, and they raided his house, and they rummaged around Melania's sock drawer, because that's what the FBI does. But there is more. They're saying Trump was, in fact, warned about this. The Guardian has more. They say federal prosecutors have evidence that Trump was put on notice now, that he could not retain any classified documents after he was subpoenaed for their return last year. He got one demanding their return last year, and they're continuing to examine subsequent failures. The previous unreported warning towards Trump, conveyed to Trump by his lawyer, Evan Corcoran, could be significant in the criminal investigation about Trump's handling of the classified materials, given it shows he knew about his subpoena obligations. Last June, Trump lawyer Evan Corcoran found 40 classified documents in the storage room at Mar-a-Lago, told the Justice Department no further materials remained at the property. Unfortunately, that later shown to be untrue. The FBI later returned with a warrant, seized 101 additional, what they call classified documents. Everything is classified to them. They're going after everything. Corcoran found the 40 classified documents, but they said no. Even the personal documents that were declassified are classified. The federal investigation-led special counsel Jack Smith has recently focused on why the subpoena was not being complied with. Could that be another crime? And asked whether Trump arranged for the boxes of classified documents to be moved out of the storage room so he could illegally retain them. Prosecutors have been fixated on Trump's valet, Walt Nauta. He told Justice Department officials that Trump told him to move the boxes out of the storage room, both before and after the subpoena. The activity was captured on subpoenaed surveillance footage, though there were gaps in the tapes. The warning was one of several key moments that Evan Corcoran preserved in roughly 50 pages of dictated notes described to The Guardian over several weeks by 3 people with knowledge of their contents. Wow. So Trump's lawyer is now communicating with the press about all this. The notes revealed how Trump and Trump's valet, Nauta, had unusually detailed knowledge of the botched subpoena response, including where Corcoran intended to search and not search for the classified documents. Although ordinarily off limits to prosecutors, the notes ended up before a grand jury after a U.S. Court of Appeals out of D.C. agreed that Trump's attorney-client privilege is pierced because they already believe that Trump might have used his lawyer's legal advice in furtherance of a crime. The notes described how Corcoran told Nauta about the subpoena before he started looking for classified documents because Corcoran needed him to unlock the storage room. Corcoran then described how Nauta had offered to help him go through the boxes, which he declined, told Nauta to stay inside. Prosecutors now know that there were times when the storage room might have been left unattended, such as when Corcoran needed to take a break, or when he walked out to a pool area nearby. And in addition to this exchange with Trump, Corcoran described Trump's facial expressions and reactions whenever they discussed the subpoena. The unusually detailed nature of his notes is said to have irritated Trump, who only learned about them after the notes themselves were subpoenaed. The notes did not address why Corcoran only looked in the storage room, though he separately testified to the grand jury that while Trump did not mislead him, he did not say where to search either. In other words, Trump didn't tell him where all the documents were. Yeah, so he's being very careful with his words. He didn't respond to a request for comment, neither did the special counsel's office. Obstruction is a challenging case. Prosecutors would need to show why Trump arranged for Nauta to remove the boxes. Trump's legal team have said the subpoena response was incomplete because Corcoran was not as thorough as he should have been. So Trump's legal team now pointing at Corcoran, this guy. Corcoran very likely going to be pointing back at Trump. Trump's spokesman has previously said of the investigation, nothing more than a targeted witch hunt, all true. To resolve the issue about the gaps in the footage, special counsel also subpoenaed somebody else, Matthew Calamari Sr., the Trump Organization chief of security, who became its COO. So they're going after the entire Trump Organization as well. Both Calamaris testified to the grand jury earlier this month. They were questioned about text messages. Justice Department has interviewed multiple people several times, and the Justice Department has already interviewed Nauta several times last year. But then they grew concerned that he failed to provide them with a complete and accurate account of his role in moving the boxes. To force his cooperation, here's what your garbage DOJ does. Prosecutors threatened to charge him with lying to the FBI. You either do exactly what we say or we're going to charge you with the crime. After he gave differing accounts over several interviews. So do you see how that works? They'll interview you once. All right. They'll get some facts from you. They'll interview you again. You're trying to be very helpful. They'll get some more facts from you. Then if you don't do what they want, they'll say, well, your first interview and your second interview were a little bit different. And since you lied to us now, we're going to charge you with a crime. How do you feel about that? You say, well, I don't want to be charged with a crime. And they say, well, good. Do exactly what we want. That's why you never, ever talk to the cops. In recent interviews, they have asked whether Nauta removed the boxes and where he went with them. And so the investigation against Trump continues. And so the question becomes now, what is to come of this? There are some people who say Trump is out to destroy institutions. I think this is exactly why Trump is being prosecuted so aggressively, is because they know that if Trump does win, that there will be some wrecking balls swinging around pretty heavily at some of the institutions like, I don't know, FBI, DOJ, Homeland Security, and others.
I want to ask you a little bit about something you said last year when I was asking you about the state of the country. You said it would concern you if President Trump ran for office again. He is currently the front runner for the Republican nomination. What's your level of concern now?
Well, I'm concerned because, among other things, because he has been very clear that he wants to dramatically change, if not dismantle, some major institutions in the American government. And, you know, my attitude for a long time has been many of the institutions in our government need dramatic reform. Mm-hmm. But those institutions are critical to the preservation of our democracy, preservation of our economic well-being, and frankly, our freedom.
A lot of those institutions can go, starting with the FBI, the DOJ, and the weaponized government, because as we can see, they are creating an entire structure around prosecuting Donald Trump. They've got everybody diving in. National Archives, the entire DOJ has been reoriented. We just got done going through the Durham report, and Cobb, even a former Trump White House lawyer, is agreeing that Trump is likely facing serious consequences like jail. What can Trump do to avoid all of this? win the presidency. Then he'll be in charge, and he can restructure those institutions according to the power of the presidency. So that, my friends, is the update on Donald Trump and whether he will be arrested. Things are looking pretty serious there.